What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got some new Keyforge cards that we need to be having a look at. Just yesterday I showed you some new Untamed cards, so we put all the new Untamed cards into one lovely video. It worked rather nicely. The problem is that we ended up with a whole bunch of, not even that many, there were 4 other cards, and there aren't enough to really group them into particular houses. So, yeah. Guess we need to pop them all in here. So let's do that, shall we? And let's start off over with the Grand Star Alliance with Red Alert. It's an action card, no amber bonus, we're expecting it to be good. If there are more enemy creatures than friendly creatures, deal damage to each enemy creature equal to the difference. So that's kind of a complicated one here. But essentially this just does a lot of damage and hopefully acts as a bit of a board wipe. So if your opponent's got 4 creatures out and you've got 2 creatures out, there are 2 more enemy creatures than friendly, so you deal 2 damage to each enemy creature. And this is really going to depend on the spot. This is another one of those cards I'm slightly, I suppose, surprised it doesn't have an amber bonus. Because don't get me wrong, right, this could be an over-the-top amazing card, or it could be a complete waste. And a lot of the time cards that could be a complete waste end up having an amber bonus. But I think the theory here is that it could be so good that you've got to not give it the bonus. I mean, if you're just doing 1 damage, stuff like Dusk Witch will go down, and 2 damage, stuff like Ember Imp will go down. A lot of the Burn the Witch cards, the cards that you really need to get rid of right now, do tend to be quite weak. But what if there's a Lollop the Titanic? There's no way that you're going to be able to take full advantage of this. I mean, okay, maybe your opponent has 11 more creatures than you, and this will then act as a complete board wipe, but that's also kind of terrifying that you let your opponent get into a position where they had 11 more creatures than you. And this is another one of those cards where it's at its best when your opponent is doing really well. This card gets really good when your opponent has lots more creatures than you. So I don't know. I like this card. It's situational. It depends on you being behind in the game. I think there's a lot of potential, but I'm always wary of cards like this. Now, we do have a discard Etaromme. Now, I cannot remember if this one's come up before or not. I think we mentioned it briefly when it came up as part of an image with lots of cards in. So we'll mention it briefly, but we won't dawdle. It is a disc creature, it is a 4-power creature with no armor, and when you reap, you destroy a creature of the house with the most creatures in play. And then you, as the active player, will make that choice. If there are 7 Saurian Republic creatures, you have the choice of which one you actually get to get rid of. Now, this one I like quite a bit better. I mean, first of all, 4 power is fine. It's not amazing, but it's nothing to sniff at. But I think far better than that, it's under your control. You don't have to reap with Etaromme. Now, you can, obviously, but you don't have to. So, let's say, for argument's sake, you and your opponent are both playing Dis, and there are 7 Dis creatures in play in total. You reap, you destroy a Dis creature, and maybe you get rid of one of your opponents, or maybe you get rid of your own Dust Imp, which gives you 2 amber when it's destroyed. But maybe you've got 4 Grand Star Alliance creatures, and that's more than any other house, and your opponent doesn't play the Grand Star Alliance. Well, then all of a sudden, you probably shouldn't be reaping with this. Not unless you've got a creature you're willing to give up. This is not a guaranteed thing. Now, don't get me wrong. At the point where you reap, you know what's going to happen. But you can't just play this down knowing what it's going to do turn after turn. How good it is, what creature it gets rid of, etc. is going to change markedly between turns. But the fact of the matter is, you can use this to get rid of a big creature from your opponent. I am 100% in favour of that. We've also then got a couple of Shadows cards to look at. I'm going to start off with Symon. Symon says, well, Symon does not look like your typical Shadows creature, incidentally. And it is a 1-power creature with no armor, no elusive. This is not a difficult creature to take down. But it has got skirmish, which means if you start the fight, you will survive the fight, which is lovely. If your opponent starts the fight, you are definitely going down, unless it's a 0-power creature at some point. But as long as you start the fight, you're going to be good. And as long as you survive the fight, which as we just mentioned, you definitely will, put the creature Symon fights on top of its owner's deck. This, ladies and gentlemen, is wonderful. I adore this. This reminds me very much of Collector Worm, which we know is not going to be in Worlds Collide because Mars aren't in Worlds Collide. Collector Worm, when you fight, you archive the creature that you fight. It gets it off the board. Now, Collector Worm is better in that you're archiving them, so you decide when it comes out your archive. Whereas here, you're putting it on top of your opponent's deck. They're going to get it straight back. But then again, this has got skirmish. Collector Worm's got 5 armor. So for argument's sake, let's say there is a Khalifi Dragon. As always, we don't know which cards are going to make the jump over the Worlds Collide, so we're just using examples for now. Khalifi Dragon will get a nice 1-hit KO on Collector Worm. When you attack it, it will deal 12 damage to you. That's not good. You're going down. You don't survive the fight, nothing gets archived, job's a good 'un. However, Symon here attacks it. It's got skirmish, takes nothing back. Khalifi Dragon goes on top of the deck. And Khalifi Dragon's actually a really good example here, because Khalifi Dragon can only be played if you have 7 amber or more. Even when you draw Khalifi Dragon, it's not that easy to actually get it onto the field. So here, your opponent actually plays it, you put it back on top of their deck, and they can still play it the next turn, but the problem is, if they're going to play it, they've got to have 7 amber or more. Or maybe you go with something like Duskwitch. Again, may or may not be in Worlds Collide, nice example. Because it's got that Omega keyword skill, which means when you play it, it ends your turn. Or it ends up doing stuff part of your turn. You still get to draw until you've got 6 cards in hand, or however many you're supposed to have. So you put it on top of your opponent's deck, and either they don't get to use Duskwitch, or they play it down and it ends their turn. And Duskwitch is amazing, right? It says that any creature you play comes into play ready, but it's Omega, so it's any creature you play next turn comes into play ready. Well, here, you can put it back on top of their deck, and then they can play it next turn, but then it ends that turn, and then it's a turn after. See where I'm going with this? Symon is just great for taking creatures off the board that are either hurting you or giving your opponent too much of an advantage, and I love it. Incidentally, pretty good for getting rid of Collector Worm as well. And finally, Vinda, a 2-power, 0-armor creature that does have elusive, so it's moderately hard to take down. And when you reap, you deal 1 damage to a creature. If it destroys that creature, steal an amber. So think of it like Seeker Needle, except instead of gaining an amber, you steal an amber. Now, it's got to destroy the creature, and that's a bit awkward. If you find yourself against something like a Duskwitch or an Urchin, cool. They're 1-power creatures. You're fine. Clearly, there is a phenomenal combo here with Bad Penny, because Bad Penny's a 1-power creature, and when it gets destroyed, it goes back to your hand to do over again. And it is very important to note that with Vinda, just like with Seeker Needle, it says deal 1 damage to a creature, not an enemy creature, so you can use this to deal damage to your own. And it still says steal an amber, so you can destroy your own Bad Penny and then steal an amber from your opponent. It doesn't say steal an amber from the owner of that creature. It says steal an amber, which means from your opponent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is phenomenal. This is wonderful. Just so long as there are creatures to take advantage. I mean, I use this example a lot because it's a phenomenal creature. If you've got a Brenda Fanatic, and you can somehow get that with 2 damage on, i.e. so it's only got 1 health remaining, or to be more precise, 1 more damage will destroy it, then when you destroy Brenda Fanatic, you steal 4 amber. This is a good one, ladies and gentlemen. This is a really good one. But it might not work. And that's like so many Keyforge cards. Vinda is a phenomenal card, but you need to have a decent target, just like with Seeker Needle. But I'm alright with that. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, a nice roundup. These were, along with the Untamed cards I showed you yesterday, these were the new cards shown off in the live stream yesterday. Unfortunately, there were only 7 new cards. Boo, hiss, etc. But never mind, ladies and gentlemen. We can cross our fingers that more get revealed soon. And let's not forget that we are just 8 days away from a special Keyforge announcement on the 26th of September. Don't worry, when the announcement comes, I'll be making a video. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk about games. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio if you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all that good stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.